Hello, I'm Dr. James Bogash, expert in health and longevity and creator of Bogash Life in Balance. And today we're going to talk about an interesting study that should not really come as a new surprise to most of you who have been following everything I've put out on COVID and especially the microbiome, and how much the gut may be playing a role in COVID severity and maybe even the post-COVID, the long haulers and what they're experiencing. Now, keep in mind that when we look at these studies, it very well may be that the changes in the microbiome as somebody gets worse are caused by COVID as opposed to creating the problems associated with COVID. So I certainly accept that that is possible, but I will also tell you that the research on the microbiome driving inflammation is quite plentiful, and it certainly makes sense that if we change the microbiome, we can change, negatively or positively, change the way our immune system is behaving. So that makes sense to me, and sometimes I have to look at what makes sense more than what could be possible. So in this study, it was in Hong Kong, a series of Hong Kong hospitals looking at 100 patients, and they did serial microbiome testing. So basically looking at them throughout the course of their infection. And there's a direct correlation between bacteria driving, certain types of bacteria driving inflammation in the people who had COVID and the controls that did not have COVID. Interestingly enough, those changes also occurred as the severity got worse. So in the study, there was a small amount, 5% were severe and 3 were critical. And they could look at the microbiome and say these people were more like, without looking at their symptoms, these people were more likely to be severe or even critical versus looking at somebody's microbiome and say, well, these people were part of the control. So what's happening in the gut is probably playing a very important role in both the crazy inflammation that we see in COVID and the downstream things that start to damage organs after that, and also the the long haulers, the post-COVID symptoms, the fatigue, the joint pain, everything that goes with it, the recurrent fevers. The microbiome certainly makes sense to be part, or at least part of the cause of this. And all too often people just go back to what they're doing instead of looking at, gosh, I'm not feeling well, what can I do to rebuild my microbiome? And that may be the answer to how to manage these COVID long haulers. That has everything to do with diet and the types of fibers and phytonutrients we take in, probiotic supplements, making sure that digestion is good. I've certainly done my share of videos on how to rebuild the microbiome. We already know from antibiotics that even years later, the microbiome has not recovered its diversity. So would that be a big stretch to think that an infection like a viral infection like SARS-CoV-2 could create a disruption of the microbiome that takes a long time to recover? Absolutely, completely makes sense. And maybe if we shifted our focus towards restoring the microbiome, people who are long haulers would have better outcomes. So I will post a link to at least one of my videos about rebuilding the microbiome, especially in light of COVID. I'll also post a link to this particular study in the description. Make sure you like this video, share it with somebody who you think needs the information, and subscribe to the channel.